So, I mean, I think we have plenty of time. Hopefully somebody has some questions. Yeah?
I think it seems like the adventure has, oh sorry, I can introduce myself. My name is Josephine. It seems like now you've been gone for like 6 years, and the adventure that it was supposed to be, I believe it's still an adventure, but it sounds like it has more become a way of life or sort of a lifestyle. Do you imagine now that there is a stopping point, or is it just your?
Yeah, I don't know, it's a great question, because like I always kind of told myself, okay, I'll sail until I either run out of money or it stops being fun. And I've already run out of money a couple of times, but it's still a whole lot of fun. So I'd really like to get Delos around. I never really thought that doing a circumnavigation, it was certainly not something I planned on doing. But now, since we're like halfway around, it kind of makes more sense to keep on going west. So I think we'll maybe go for that. And I mean, the thought of like, you do begin to miss some things. Like I love working on engines, and I like to weld, and I like building motors, and I can't really do that on the boat. So, I mean, ideally, it'd be really sweet to have some sort of a home base, go there for maybe the off season, but then come back to Delos for the other part of the year, which would just be kind of the best of both worlds. And then you get that time off away from sailing to where you're feeling refreshed and rejuvenated and loving it as much more. So I don't know, I really think I'll sail for a long time, just maybe not for years at a time, Yeah.
And I think for me, it was something that got kind of introduced to my life like 4 years ago, and it just absorbed like my whole, everything I do. Not really, but yes. And it's like kind of how we live, and I can see that I miss some things, I miss having like girlfriends that I go out with and have a fika, important as well. But
do you guys have that here though? Fika?
Yeah, I can see that at some point, when you start to think about maybe family in the coming years, and that you kind of want to be stationary somewhere, because that's something that I don't feel at all now. Like I don't have a home really, except Delos. So yeah, I think we'll keep on going for a while and then see what happens.
And yeah, family and friends is a big one too. Like missing, like I have another brother, a middle brother. This me and Braden. And I have a niece and a nephew that like I only get to see every couple of years. So I mean, you miss that. And my dad's getting older, so it'd be nice to see him more often. And you think of all these things, but you still have this kind of pull of the ocean and sailing that takes you thousands of miles away. So it's always a matter of finding balance, I guess.
How about your? Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm Henrik. How about your ship? You have this engine on it, and you carry how much diesel? You have a generator.
Yeah.
That works. How many kilowatts is that? How much diesel do you carry?
So we carry, in the main tank, we carry 600 liters.
Yeah.
And then I carry another 50 liters in case something happens to the main tank supply, like something breaks or you lose it into the build or something. And the main burns just under 4 liters an hour at our cruise speed, which is, the normal cruise is about 6.5 knots or something. So I think our range is, we burn about 100 liters a day.
What kind of engine is that?
It's a Volvo turbo diesel, 2022A, 78 horsepower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's pretty fuel efficient, and we've never had any problems. We get diesel every 2 or 3 months, depending. In Asia, it's been about every 2 months, but in the South Pacific, sometimes it was. We didn't fill up one time between New Zealand and Australia just because the winds were so good.
Yeah.
The generator is a 7 kilowatt Onin,
Yeah.
220 volt, 50 hertz, and it fully loaded, it burns about 1 liter an hour, maybe a little bit less. So when we're running that, we try and run all the systems, like the water maker, try and do laundry. We run the still to make alcohol. I didn't even touch on that. It's like, that should have been in the money part. It's like when we really started to save money, and we were in Australia and figured, wow, booze is really expensive here. And then we figured out how much we need for a month of sailing with 5 people on board. And it turned out we could buy the still and all the supplies for a fraction of the amount we would have just bought bottles for, and enough to make liquor for like years.
Forever.
Yeah, so it turned out really good. But yeah, it was on the generator and water maker and all that stuff gets run as well.
So how much do you run it every day, generator?
We have 600 watts of solar, and Delos is a pretty power-hungry boat, so we have electric everything. We have 2 freezers, 1 refrigerator, lights, and toilets and water pump and all that stuff. So if we're where we're at right now, we run the generator maybe every other day for like an hour or 2. But if we're using the laptops a lot, that goes out the window. Then we're running it every afternoon. If we've got 1 or 2 laptops running and we're working on a video or something, they just really suck the power.
And how about you've got some solar panels and a prop?
Yeah, the wind generator blew up in Fiji. We hit a squall and it just gone. So I took that off, and yeah, just the solar panels now with MPPT charger makes a big difference. The mean point power tracking, I think that's what it stands for. But yeah, the solar panel rocks, and it doesn't make any noise. So they're so cheap now. When I bought mine before leaving Seattle, it was like $800 US, and I just bought another one in Australia, and it was like $200 or $250 for a bigger, more powerful one. So I mean, the prices of. I love my solar panels. Free energy. Yeah. So yeah, good. Over there.
Hi, my name is Christian. Well, you sort of touched upon it. You stated that it had consequences living in such close quarters. But what is actually your advice? What do you have any codex? Can you give any examples of crisis situations that you
We'll take this one.
Crisis situations. I think with all the people that have been on the boat and all the people that have been for a longer time, we've been, I don't know if the luck is the right word, but everybody has been pretty like-minded. It's everybody kind of just want to we like to relax. We like to not doing things all the time. And I think everybody has been really good with that, and just the respect that if you notice that somebody is like, feeling a bit tired or like just want to get out, like you respect that and don't go in their face and like, hey, should we do something? So I think that's a big part, just the respect between the people on board, and then just try to be as open as possible. If you feel pissed off about something, you sit down and just like, okay guys, this is not cool, like this is not working for me, I feel like whatever it is. But we haven't, during my 4 years on the boat, like we haven't had really any arguments, like nobody's screaming, nobody's going crazy, like everybody's just kind of respect each other, and just I don't know.
There are some pretty specific things that we do, like the scrum board, for example. Like when we have projects that need to be done or chores that need to be done, we write them up on yellow sticky notes, and we have kind of 3 categories. Stuff that needs to get done, stuff that we're currently doing, and stuff that we've finished. So nobody has to ever ask what job needs to be done, because as soon as you think about it, something is broken. It goes up there. Water line needs to be cleaned. You need to get the rust spots off the deck. And then you can kind of say, okay, this is your job, write somebody's name on it, or they volunteer to take it. I think that's helped a lot, because then you can see what you need to do. You know who's working on what, and then you just kind of get it to complete. And the other thing that we've done that I think is really super helpful is we kind of have this thing that nobody's, like, there's no prima donna, there's nobody that doesn't cook, there's nobody that doesn't clean. So let's say that we have 4 people on board. That means that, you know, you're going to cook every 4th day. I'll cook, Karen will cook, Yosha cooks, Brady cooks, and then I'll cook again. And when you cook, you clean. So you do dishes, you cook dinner, you know, you clean up your mess, you do everybody's dishes afterwards. So the nice thing about that is now you have 3 days where you don't have to do shit, basically. You can just eat and kick back knowing that, okay, on my day, I have everything to do and I have to do it. And we just do it in rotation, always like that. You always know whose day it is, and it becomes like this exciting thing because food becomes a really big deal because you're out there and you're hungry and you have all this time. You're like, oh, what am I going to cook today? And so you start thinking about it right after breakfast, you know, what's going on for dinner? Yeah, I think the cooking and cleaning, making sure that everybody has to do it.
Yeah. I think one part that if now it's been only me and Brian for a while, but now when we're going to sail, you know, it's going to be more people again. So one thing that I would like to change is that everybody takes part of downloading grid files, looking at anchorages, even though you are not the most like efficient about it, or you don't really know how it is. Like really, you're kind of taking part and checking, so it's not like only Brian, because he's the captain, he decides where we're going and he decides everything. To actually, like, even though you're crew, to be part of like having that responsibility as well. I think
and
that
if you want to go somewhere, you have to speak up and tell everybody, like, hey guys, I read about this cool spot over there. I think we should go there. You know, don't like wait until we can't go there and be like, I really wanted to go there. Like, well, why didn't you say something, man? We're always looking for cool places to go. So yeah, it comes back to just communication, I guess.
So can you relax with all this responsibility?
Yeah, I have an awesome crew. I sleep really well. You know, and like with 4 people on board, then that means I get 9 hours of sleep. 3 hours on, 9 hours off. I mean, can't beat that. And everybody, you know, like when somebody's new on the boat, they don't do watch on their own. You know, you sleep outside, and if anything feels weird, they wake you up for, you know, a couple weeks or however long it takes until they feel comfortable. Yeah, it's not bad at all, I don't think. Yeah. Anything else?
You mentioned water. You've got a water maker. How big tanks do you have? How much water do you use per person per day, or what's your routine there?
Yeah, we have 1,000 liters of water, but our water maker is pretty big. It makes about 200 liters an hour, so yeah, it's a massive one. So I really don't let the tank go below 500, but I don't keep it full all the time, because then I'm just carrying an extra half metric ton of water around. It really doesn't, and 500 liters will last a while. I mean, you know, we don't, it's nice because we don't worry about using it, so we don't feel bad about washing the deck off with fresh water or taking freshwater showers after we go swimming and stuff like that. You know, we've met some boats that actually have to ration their swimming because they don't want to get salty and then they can't afford the water to rinse off, which I think is just a bummer to have to do that. Yeah, did that?
how much we use.
Oh, how much do we use? Well, let's see. Depends on if the water maker is working or not. We use a lot less when it's not working and a lot more when it is. I think standard usage, a full tank of water would probably last us like for 4 people. I don't know how much we're using. I have no idea. Maybe
We're using a
no, we figured it out
7
in
people, 100 a day.
100 liters a day with 7 people, and that was not.
But then the water maker broke, and we used a third of that.
Yeah.
So
So that's yep.
I was thinking you talked about that sometimes you draw crew members to sort of share the expenses and stuff. You don't earn money on bringing people on board, or no, not at all.
No, we treat it kind of like an awesome road trip. So we know, like, the way we used to do it was we would just when everybody was coming, we'd buy the fuel, we'd buy the food, we'd buy whatever supplies we needed, fuel for the dinghy, oil and stuff, and then, okay, there's 5 people on the boat, we divide it up by 5, and everybody pays their share. But then we began, I looked back at the calculations and I found what we were spending, and in Australia it was about $150 per person per week, and in the Philippines it was like $100 per person per week. So if somebody comes to visit us in Asia, we just say, okay, your share is going to be $125 a week, and that'll cover all your expenses. So it's cheaper than backpacking, I think. Where can you stay, get 3 meals, and all the diving that you want for $125 a week? I don't think it's so bad.
And you haven't considered that as a way of making money?
No, we did talk about it, but and there's a lot of people out there doing it.
Yeah, right.
We talked to a couple boats in the Philippines, and one of them is making like 900 euros a day, but then that's chartering, so that's a whole different. Now you're like, I just want to sail and have fun. I don't necessarily want to try and cook somebody, a 5-star breakfast or anything. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'd rather not have to charter. I just want to sail for fun and have people join in the experience, and it seems to be working out all right so far. Yeah. I think there's over here.
Yeah, I was wondering how much time you spend on the move versus being anchored and hanging out in harbor.
Ooh, I have that stat somewhere. I think it was 13%. Mind if I look it up real quick? Maybe you can answer another question or something.
But it depends a lot, I think, on where we are as well. I mean, we were supposed to go through the Philippines really fast. We were supposed to be there for 1 month, and we stayed for 8. So we were kind of going extremely slow, in some places in Anchorage we stayed for a month. And I think the season that is coming up is going to be way faster. I mean, we're going to move in a totally different way because of the weather and the winds and where we actually have to be at certain points.
Okay, so I wrote this one in New Zealand and had some fun with it. So the title is 438 days of cruising. So we cruised for 438 days, 10,624 miles. Time at anchor was 313 days. Time at sea was 68 days, 20 hours. Days in the marina, 56 days. So I think that's our average speed, countries visited. What's some other ones? We can say hello in 7 languages at this point. We saw 64 knots in Mexico. 20-foot wave was the biggest one. Got the boat up to 14.2 knots, which is pretty good for an ML Super Marimu. All the liquor we consumed, 264 bottles of wine, 352 cans of beer, 25 Heineken mini kegs, 6 liters of gin, tequila. We started carrying rum, and this is before we had the still, in jerry jugs, because the customs thought, you leave it somewhere and they just think it's water, not 40 liters of cheap rum. We ran, so during this time, let's see, so to go 11,000, almost 11,000 miles, we used 4,080 liters of diesel. Ran the main engine 772 and the generator 861. I'd say if I were to do those stats again, those would probably be cut in half by 2 at least. So I think we've become better sailors. We used to tend to motor too quick, I think. We weren't as patient as we are now, so boat speed would get below 5 knots. We'd start motor sailing. Now we don't care. It could go 2 knots. As long as it's comfortable and we're not going backwards, then, which has happened on occasion. Let's see, the water. There's a water stat in here too, I thought. Oh yeah. So we ran the water maker enough for 200 hours, which made 32,000 liters of fresh water during that time. So I guess you could divide up the days and figure it out that way. See if we're close on our guess. Got 1 haircut. 0 hours spent in an office, and 431 consecutive days without wearing long pants. So. I like stats sometimes. Yeah. Anything else?
Hi, my name is Ole. Could you tell us something about the diving? What kind of rules you have, and everybody going in at the same time and all that stuff?
Yeah. We have, if it's a really safe spot, meaning no current, then we will dive by ourselves. If it's someplace where nobody can just drift away. I mean, by ourselves, I mean all in one team, so that everybody will go. If there's any chance of, any sort of current situation or a really steep wall drop off or anything that could happen, then we dive in teams, which means one person in the dinghy or two people in the dinghy, and then the rest of the people diving, and then you follow bubbles and come up. But yeah, we have a dive compressor on board. It's a Poseidon, which is kind of like the precursor to the Bauer Junior, and love it. It's electric, runs great, quiet, fills a standard tank in like 20 minutes, depending on the temperature and how low you've taken it. So it's pretty conservative. We have 5 full kits of gear on board. We used to have 6, but we gave one to another cruiser who really needed it more than we did. So yeah, 5 kits, a lot of spare parts. We're actually gonna write. I'm writing a blog right now about the dive equipment that we've had, because we've had so much over the years, and just what we found works, just simple standard gear. And if you're in question, go into a dive shop and see what they're using for their gear. It's not going to be like fancy $2,000 regulators and massive watches. It's going to be like basic stuff like Aqualung that's bulletproof, easy to repair, cheap rebuild kits, and works fine. Yeah.
I think it was one incident that we had when we were in Indonesia that kind of changed a little bit of the mindset that we had when we were diving. Because when we first came there, it's like a beautiful dive site. It was why we were there. It was to dive like every day, a few times a day. And we were at this island diving. We anchored the dinghy, and all of us were in the water, swam around. Didn't realize that it got created a massive current. So when we swam around this island, the dinghy was on the other side. We were here. And we just realized that it was like a 4-knot current pushing us.
We always swim up current first, right?
Yeah.
So that when the dive is done, then you can drift back or you're tired. But we went a little too far around this corner, so we were swimming up current, and all of a sudden, at the tip of this island, the current went the other way. And so it took us around the island, and we got back to the other side. And
yeah, it was just, we were holding on to the reef. And I was pretty new to diving. At that point I've done like 20 dives, and it's always been like pretty chill, no currents, nothing extreme. So I was just holding on to the reef, and it was this reef thing, and we were doing, our 3-meter safety stop, and then I just like, okay, now we have to get to the dinghy, so we have to go around this corner, and just letting go of the reef in like a split second. I can't even remember. I was like in 2,000 meters of water, and I just looked over my eyes like, I was like, what do I do? So we just got drifted, and Brian was like, you swim as fast as you can. No chance. I was swept away. And Brian and Brady managed to get back to the dinghy, and the 3 girls, we just got swept out. So we just got up to the surface, and just like
put up their safety sausages.
Yeah. So that was a real eye-opening. I was like, if the guys wouldn't have made it back to the dinghy, then all of us would have been going out to sea, basically, and that would not have been ideal.
Until the tide changed, they would have drug us back the other way, right past the dinghy.
So after that, I think all of us were kind of a little bit shaken, and like, okay, somebody is always in the dinghy. If something happens, always, so they can come and
Do you have any rituals?
You want to tell about Princess of the Week?
Yes, we created this thing that was called the Prince or the Princess of the Week. So it was basically an idea that we will have all the names in a kind of a bucket, and we'll draw one, and whoever was on that little note would be the prince or the princess of the week, and don't need to do anything. And all the other people had to do everything for that person. So if you're like, I want breakfast in bed, then they have to make it for you. I want a massage, then somebody has to massage you. And
you get called whatever you want. You could be called my lord or sir or whatever you want.
Princess Buttercup, all kinds of
Yeah.
So we did that for quite a while, like a half a year.
Until it was just me and you, and then
Yeah.
it didn't really make sense anymore. You know, it's either always going to be one of us. So. But with 5 people on board, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's the most extreme one.
Yeah. Anything else? Oh, I saw somebody back here, maybe. Somebody hiding. Yeah.
When you are in Anchorage, what experience have you got from drifting, and what kind of anchor gear are you using? Have you got any preferences?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Anchoring is really important. We have 3 anchors on the boat, and we have 2 at the bow. One is like a CQR type with the plow and a pivot deal, and I found that one works pretty good for most things. It'll hold you in everything except for soft mud. I mean, it holds real good in sand, holds good in coral, rocks. We also have a Bruce up at the bow, so just a big claw that we can use as a backup anchor with its own chain and rode all ready to go. The main anchor, we have 75 meters of chain and about 25 meters of rode. If I were to replace that, I would just replace it with, I would increase the chain to 100 meters, just for some of the places that we've been, and chain is your friend. It's good, heavy. On the stern, we have a Fortress FX50, which is light enough that you can still pick it up, put it in the dinghy, carry it out, and drop it as a stern hook or beach hook sometimes. And we have a lot of line. We probably have, I'd say 4 100-meter lines ready to be deployed, another coil of another 100 or 2. We probably have like a, at any time the ability to put out like 800 meters of line or something like that for stern tying and tying to rocks and stuff. But especially those, if you've been to Raja Ampat, you know what that line's for. And a windlass. I love when the windlass was broken, it really sucks because that's a lot of, then you're not so happy that you have so much chain out. That answer pretty good?
Yeah, but are you using some kind of techniques from not drifting? I think you have a sand mast. Are you using the sail in strong winds?
Oh, the mizzen?
Yeah.
Yeah, the mizzen is, I really like sailing a catch. The mizzen I found can really be a balancing sail, so we can get it so finely tuned that the autopilot doesn't even do anything. Like, we've been headed upwind and have actually just got everything real dialed in and have not had the autopilot on. And it's just, you can steer the boat with that sail. But in heavy weather, we start reducing the main first, bring the main down, bring the jib down, and we can leave out a bit of mizzen longer on Delos. Doesn't really add that much speed because it's a fairly flat sail. There's not a lot of depth to it. But in high winds, it's fine.
It can be also, when we're anchoring, we also always back down on the anchor.
Oh, is that what you meant? Like to keep the boat in line when we're anchored?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
actually meant that if you're using it like an anchor sail, you can get some specialized anchor sails you hang up.
Yeah, we actually haven't done that a lot. We do swing a little bit at anchor. Maybe I should experiment with that more. I've seen other people do it. But yeah, I mean, mainly when we anchor is we drop the hook, we put out sufficient scope, and then we slowly back down until we get up to about 1800 RPM, which is just right before the turbo engages. And I know at 1800 we can do like 6 knots. And I know about how much wind on bare poles it would take to push Delos at 6 knots. So I figure that's pretty safe. And we've rode in that configuration for like 60 knot winds without a problem. Yeah. A lot of chain. Yeah. Somebody else? No?
You're still on the same set of sails?
Yeah. Actually, the sails that are on Delos were put on by the previous owner in New Zealand. And so the sails have been from New Zealand through the South Pacific to Seattle and then on our trip. And we've probably done about 30,000 nautical miles at this point. So they're a little tired.
Yeah,
But still, I mean, we repair them all the time. Breathing new life into them. Sails are expensive. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people who are not ready to commit to a 3-year plan just yet? Just to how to get a taste of the cruising world?
Yeah, I saw, I don't know what the version of that would be around here, but in Mexico and the Caribbean, well, I can speak to Mexico because we were there, we met quite a few people who would sail their boat from the Pacific Northwest or California down to Mexico. They would spend 3 or 4 months there and then sail back and do the whole thing in like 6 or 7 months, including, a month getting there, chilling out for 4 or 5 months or whatever, and then a month getting back. And yeah, people do that for years and years and years. And then eventually they just started leaving their boats down there. So they'd go down sailing for like 4 months. When the cyclones came, then they'd go back home and work. And so I'd imagine there has to be, I know people do that in the Caribbean as well, between like Florida and the islands. And is there anything like that in Europe for that? I have no idea. Well, maybe.
But we're also going to have a couple from Australia sailing with us from Quebec now when we fly back down to Singapore. And they're we were talking to them on Skype and they were just describing like we're planning on leaving on our own boat, but don't know so much about it and really want to get some kind of experience in how the system works, and they're probably going to haul out, and they were really excited to be there helping us to like paint and grind, and which is really cool. So that might be also a way to like go with somebody else.
Yeah, other people's boats, I guess.
Like back to Prince and Princess again.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just been promoted. I guess I can speak to the South Pacific. There's always been these ports where boats go into. So if you happen to position yourself in a port before a rally is going to leave, like for example in Australia, there's the Darwin rally, and all the boats from the South Pacific and from Australia kind of congregate at this point. And it's a published rally, so you know when these cruising boats are leaving. And there was guys just walking around the docks. There was a guy in, I think it was Fiji that we met, who was going around in a dinghy that he had borrowed from somebody. He was a backpacker and he just got a dinghy, and he was rowing around to every boat saying, hey, do you need crew, do you need crew? And I think he actually found a ride. So I guess that could be a method, maybe find when a rally is, go there and just walk around. And it's kind of all about getting in front of somebody, and they want to make sure you're not some crazed weirdo, Yeah. Yeah?
What's happening to Delos right now? Is it in water? Or is
Yeah,
yeah.
she's...
And who's taking care
Some local guy that is kind of taking care of some other boats and just going on boarder every couple days to check the pumps and the bilge and make sure the batteries are topped up, and pretty basic stuff. There's no marina where we're at, or there is a marina, but it's not something I would tie my boat to because chunks of it regularly float off and into nowhere, so it's not of high quality. But yeah, we have a mooring and we have a separate anchor, and it's a 360-degree kind of protected area built up and stern tied to a concrete wall and stuff. So I'm more worried about thieves than anything. So we set up a tripwire with an alarm that turns on lights and stuff in the cockpit. And there's other people living on boats around, so they have our mobile phone numbers. And at the end of the day, you can't be owned by your boat, or else you'll never leave at anchor even to go see an island. So sometimes, yeah. Anything else? No? Well, we have some cards up here, so if you guys haven't seen our videos or want to check some of them out, please take a card, check out the YouTube channel, and the best thing you can do is just, I think, live your dreams and go sailing on your own and, do that. So thanks for your time. It's been really cool to come and share with you guys, so really appreciate it. Meant a lot.